Hello and welcome back to another episode of FTB Sky Factory 2.5. My name is Twin Minds, and today we're going to go dimension hopping. That's right, we've got RFTools, and the dimensional process of RFTools is a pretty interesting thing. If any of you are familiar with Mistcraft from previous versions, RFTools kind of mimics that same process of building your own dimension and designing it with all of the different components in mind. And then instead of being a magical based mod, it is a tech based mod, so it runs off of RF and all that stuff. So before we get into that though, I wanted to show off a couple of changes here. First thing, I did end up automating the creation of Tesseracts, and I did that kind of in my off time because I realized I was going to have to fiddle with it a little bit, and my fiddling is long and complex methods of me sitting and staring at it for long periods of time without anything happening. So I didn't want to subject you to that. Ultimately, it ended up being much more simple than I thought it would. I thought I would have to go through a bunch of filtering and all that nonsense. But basically, this slightly larger chest here is directly adjacent to this ME interface, which has the pattern required. And the pattern just tells it, I need an empty Tesseract frame and 4 pearls. It dumps that into the chest, just automatically based on the way the interface works. And then at the bottom here, it's set to pull out everything, and these two are set to put in everything. There's no filtering required, because the only thing that's going to come into the magma crucible is anything that can be melted, in this case pearls. And anything that can go into the fluid transposer is only going to be able to accept the liquids, which in this case is going to be the Tesseract. So those both go into their appropriate slots without me having to think about it, and ultimately they get filled, and this orange just pumps right back up out to the top and into the interface. And that's the only difference with the way the interfaces work compared to a machine that can auto output and receive next to it like these could. If I were to pump that Tesseract back into the chest, the interface would not receive it. It wouldn't receive it automatically like other methods. So you just have to pump it directly into the interface. And since the interface receives that item, it knows that the crafting has been completed and it's done. So it's a really simple setup, actually. All I did was I just upgraded the heck out of this using the coils here, which just increased the production speed at a cost of a lot more energy. But in this case, I'm not concerned about it because I have plenty of energy to spare. So I just had no problem filling up those things full speed. My biggest slow point now with automating the Tesseract is I still can't navigate now with the speed. If we look at the Tesseract here, I can craft the empty frame, I can craft the full frame, and I can craft the full Tesseracts. In fact, I did these 4 as a test just to make sure it was working. And all 3 of these need to be in here because of all 3 of the steps required to make the Tesseract. The primary stopping point here is the crafting of the fused quartz. There isn't really an easy way to speed that up short of adding a bunch more smelting machines to smelt down the quartz into the fused quartz. So each one of these does end up taking some time simply to make that fused quartz. But if I had a faster method of that, the Tesseract creation would be pretty quick. So I'm not too upset about that. I'm okay with hitting go and waiting a little bit. In fact, in the matter of hitting go and waiting a little bit, these 64K ME storage cells take, well, if I set to craft 10 of them, which is enough to fill up one of these drives, it takes on average about 10 minutes to do, because there's a lot involved in these things. See how long it has to take to process that. It's calculating every step of the way. So it has to craft a bunch of quartz glass, which is obviously that slow cooking point. It also has to craft up all of these circuits, which then need to be cooked up. So 270 circuits, 40 and 90, all of those need to be crafted, and then they need to be smelted. So that smelting process just takes for bloody ever. So that's just kind of one of those slow points here. One thing I did want to test is I also set it to auto-craft vibrant capacitors. These should be quick because there's nothing smelting required. So what I'd like to do is see how long it actually takes. And I'll explain why it's so quick in a moment. Well, no, I take that back. It's not going to be quick. I just realized I have to smelt up all of the energetic alloy and vibrant alloys as well, because I don't have those coming from cows, so I don't have them readily available. So this is probably going to end up taking quite some time, actually. I told it to hit start. It's not doing start. Why is it not hitting start? Interesting. Huh. Well then, I will have to figure that out. I must have done something wrong. Oh well. I'll have to get my capacitors at a later time. The reason I wanted to test how fast it is all of these pillars here have been upgraded to the max with acceleration cards. And they plow through crafting operations very quickly. Now, another minor thing I did here, nothing really changed in Britannia, except for I made one of the Elven Mana Spreaders, using all those materials from the portal, which sped up the creation of the Runic Altar. Because ultimately the Elven Mana Spreader can spread more mana at a time, so this thing just accepted mana faster, which processed faster. Over here, this spinning doohickey is the Botanical Brewery, which is Britannia's method of brewing potions. I'm not going to use it yet, I haven't used it yet, but I wanted it there just 'cause, I guess. Why not? If I end up needing a potion, though, it will be available for me. All I have to do is buy in this spreader to point the opposite direction and brew up whatever I need. So that's that. Now, the reason I wanted to speed this up is the next thing that I'm showing you here. Right over here. So I moved all of my armors from over here, hiding in the corner, to the entryway. And I added all of these colorful armor sets here. Each one of these is from Britannia. These are the kind of various levels of armor. This is the Mana Weave set, which is just string in a mana pool, and then crafted up into an armor shape, basically. And what these do, in this case, it's a really minor armor set. It's less than leather, I think, for protective. But it is 35% less mana cost on mana tools and rods, and increased proficiency with magical rods, as you can see there. So if I were to be kind of a traditional spellcaster using all the wands and rods at my disposal, I would be able to do that much more efficiently without costing a bunch of mana. The next set over here is the Mana Steel, which is just straight up Mana Steel in an armor set. 10% less mana cost than mana tools and rods, so it's less efficient with mana, but still more efficient than a regular armor. And I think this is iron level armor protection, I believe. These two, I believe, are Diamond Plus level. They both do better than Diamond, I think. No, that looks about the same as the Mana Steel, so maybe the Mana Steel is also Diamond, perhaps. This is the Elementium set. Great Fairy's Blessing is the set bonus for wearing all of the pieces there. Again, 10% less mana, but also a chance for pixies to apply potion effects. So pixies could potentially randomly spawn in the world and apply potion effects. I believe that's only for yourself, but it might be for enemies as well. I haven't played around with it all that much. I might even put this on just to see how it goes. I'm not trading much difference between pink versus purple, so it's not a visual shocker there. This is the Terra Steel armor, kind of widely considered the better armor of the two. It has higher protection, as you can see there, 3, 8, 6, and 3, versus the 2, 6, 5, and 2. So it's higher protection, and a significant chunk, I think 90+% of the damage that you would take gets taken in the form of mana from whatever mana you have on you. So it is still better than a standard diamond set. And this set bonus gives you regeneration even if you don't have full hunger, which is very nice. Plus passive mana generation on your tablets, so mana will just appear on you to kind of offset the amount of mana you're burning with the damage you're taking. Plus 20% less mana cost than mana tools, so it's still more efficient with mana. This might end up being a pretty good set, and if you look at the bottom there, it does have knockback resistance, which I was kind of complaining about in the Gaia fight. So this is obviously the intended armor to fight Gaia with, and I most certainly will test this out in my next fight with the Gaia 2 fight. And if you look at the name here, Terra Steel Helmet of Revealing. The Revealing, in this case, by the way, the crafting recipe for this is the Mana Steel Helmet plus Living Wood Twigs, and the Ruin of Spring. Each of the Terrasteel armor pieces required one of the ruins of one of the seasons, so I had to craft all those up as well, which is why I wanted that to go infusion crafting to go faster. But the revealing is where you can put goggles of revealing on your helmet. So remember when I was swapping out my goggles of revealing to lose my armor so that I can actually see the aura nodes, you don't necessarily have to swap it out if you can put it on your helmet. The goggles can't always be done that way. I think only with magical mods that have chosen to do such a thing. So Britannia is one of them. There are some other mods in the past that I've played with that, the Power Suits mod, some of you may be familiar with, had an option to put goggles revealing into the helmet as well. Even though it was a technical suit, it still offered the option of the goggles as an upgrade. So these are the armor sets. I mostly built them for decoration and because it was no significant cost to me, because I already had all the materials for all of these three at least. So I wasn't concerned there. And I've decided that I needed some more decoration in the front here aside from the three that I had already got. So yeah, that's why I did that, just for fun. Now, on to RFTools. RFTools, if we look in Age of the Traveler, build a dimension, travel to it, and stay for at least 10 minutes. That's doable. Infuse your machine infuser to 100%. That one confuses me. I'll have to look into that. All of the rest of these things are kind of higher level dimension building skills, so I wanted to get started at the very least. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't stick with my trend of my magical mods. I went from Witchery to Britannia, and I didn't go to Thaumcraft next. Well, Thaumcraft has some requirements of the real world that I didn't have time for yet. And one of those requirements is those aura nodes. You really need a significant aura base to tap into for your wands until you can start moving those aura nodes around with later technology. So, since my world below me, below my feet, does not have very many aura nodes to work with, I need a source of them. The Deep Dark is a source of them, but kind of a painful source. Now, the other source is RFTools dimensions, because those dimensions will act more like a regular real dimension with ground. That would be nice to have ground under my feet that isn't trying to kill me. Although, that being said, the RFTools dimensions may very well try to kill me. So, we'll see. To get started, I need a few things. I need the Dimlet Researcher, or where are you, Dimlet Researcher? Dimlet Researcher, there we are. So I need the Dimlet Researcher, which requires these unknown dimlets. That is from Endermen. As Endermen are killed, they have a rare chance to drop those unknown dimlets, which you have to research in the Dimlet Researcher. So let's get this thing crafted up and get playing with it. So I'm going to need quite a few of these machine frames. So I'm going to grab a handful and get that crafted. So I've got the Dimlet Researcher. Now, if we look at the achievements for RFTools, I need to research an unknown dimlet. The first one is to acquire one, which I did ages ago, and then I need to research one. So then we can get moving on the actual creation of dimensions and such. So what I think I will also need is this dimension builder. It's pricey. They locked it down to getting Awakened Draconium in this pack. Not normally that case in other packs. So it was definitely a tech lockdown, as it were, before you can get into this. I'm going to... yeah, let's just start with those two. We'll see how it goes from there. So I need to put these down somewhere, and then I need to give them power. I think I'm going to go here. Now, these are probably not going to stay here for very long, but, you know, figure something out. Now, another thing I did kind of in my off time that I haven't bothered showing is I cleared out all of this cobble platform over here. All of that extra crap that I had put down for extra building space, I don't need it anymore. So it was ugly and it was bothering me, so I took it down. That's that. So I need to fly under here. There we go. Now these things do suck up a lot of power, so I may end up needing to run them their own separate line instead of tapping off this main line. Due to the throughput that's locked down here of the 20,000 RF per tick, that might very well be overshadowed by those dimlet machines here. So we will see. We will see. Because as you can see here, another 10 million RF for the buffer in here. And this one is not bad, because that one's kind of the early part of it. So I need to research dimlets. I'm not going to research all of them, because I do need some for crafting up some of the other machines. And they don't come fast yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. So, dimlets, research. What these do is each one of these is a component of the world, including what the sky looks like, what the moon looks like, how long the sun is up, what the weather is like, what type of features you've got, in this case tendrils. Tendrils are kind of similar in form of the clouds up there that are forming from Natura. Those would be considered tendrils, and you can tell them to be whatever material you would like. So if you want tendrils of gold, you can do that. And that's the power of the dimensions. So, and you can also set the biome, either one solid biome throughout the whole dimension, or you can have it split up across multiple dimensions, and you can determine what mobs are in there, what liquid is available. You can make oceans of molten energetic alloy if I wanted to. So being able to design your world however you would like is an interesting feature to play with. So I definitely enjoy that part. Now, since I am only partially familiar with this mod, I'm going to kind of follow the achievements here, assuming I can click. So the next thing I need is to scramble 3 dimlets. Man, that's not really in the progression chain. That's its own kind of separate deal. I know that much. I need to deconstruct a dimlet. So yeah, these two are kind of branch offshoots of dimension world building. These two will maybe cover later. There's some serious videos out there on them already, so I might not cover them too much in detail. But I do need to build a new dimension. So to do that, I need this thing here, the empty dimension tab. It's really cheap, just redstone paper. However, I forgot to grab those things. Let's start off with just one. So what this does is this allows you to design your dimension however you want by putting them in this machine. Now to do that, I need to recall which machine I need. Probably this dimension editor right here, because you are editing your dimension. So let's craft that one up. Now this is where my experience in this mod is more limited, so you might actually see me fumbling around a bit, where I typically try not to fumble around wherever possible, on camera at least. But, you know, we'll see. Interesting. So clearly, I don't know how this mod works. I'll BRB. I was so close. Dimension Inscriber is the one that I want. So here's that one, and we'll plop that one down too. Obviously, since I don't know what I'm doing, these machines are already in the wrong order, but that's okay. So here we go. So this goes in here. Now, I believe if I do this right now without touching anything else and just hit the store button, I will get an entirely random dimension. Let's do that, because I don't really have much to work with. So I'm going to dump all these in the network for now. I might build a separate space for them. RFTools mod does include a storage device to be able to store all of your dimlets. So that's very nice of them to do. But if you look at the NEI over here, there's lots of dimlets, a lot. So there's definitely a lot that you could research out, and you can actually design some of these yourself to collect them without having to hope for random chance. But I'm probably not going to rely on that. We'll see why in a minute. So I probably need to put this in the dimension builder, like that. And it's just using up a butt ton of power, because if you look there, maintenance cost 45 RF per tick. So it takes RF to maintain, and that is almost entirely dependent on what is in the dimension. I think the default is 10 RF per tick, something like that, and then the different types of dimlets that you can put in there, if you look there it says rarity 1. The different rarities kind of dictate how much RF they're going to cost. Most of these cost 100 RF per tick to create the dimension, which is why you saw that build up there, but also X amount of RF per tick for maintenance. Most of these dimensions look like they don't have any maintenance on them, but this one, for example, if I wanted liquid resonant ender in my oceans or lakes, it would cost 300,000 RF per tick to create it, and then another 40,000 RF per tick to maintain it. So that's where some of those requirements to have X amount of RF per tick generation, like the million or so, that's where those come in handy, is building and maintaining your dimensions. So as you can see, the bar here is filling back up, and that is because the dimension itself stores RF. Since it uses RF, there needs to be some storage in there. So if I were to take this out, it would continue to store that RF and slowly tick down. And bad things would happen if you let it go. So the next step is something I don't have on my search here. The next step is RFTools matter transmitter. This is their teleportation system. So I need a matter transmitter, and I also need a dialing device. If you're familiar with Stargate, the dialing device works much like that. It's you pick the location that you're going to travel to, and then activate it to set the teleporter to teleport you there. So I need the matter transmitter, and I need, where are you? There you are, dialing device. Relatively simple and cheap devices to make. I need this and this and this. So because this is a teleporter, I kind of want it to go not there at all. That's not where I wanted that to go at all. I want it to go on the floor so that I can just simply step on it. So you go here. I'm going to have to fly. There you are. There we go. And then you can go here, which will connect to that to power that. And then the dialing device can go right there. So now I have an unknown, unnamed dimension called ID2. That's all it is, ID2. So you click on your, this right here is the, let's call it. So if we call that travel out, that then becomes this name here, so I can see where I'm going. And I could have given the dimension a name as well. So you click on your teleportation pad, and then your dimension. You hit dial, and it tells you dial is okay there. And then you've got the lovely green particle effects to show you that this is going. What I'm going to do is make sure that my option to go home is safe. Okay. Because the dimensions can be hazardous, so I just want to make sure that I've got it right. Let's check on how our energy is going. We are producing well over, so we are good. And there we go. Where are we going? I have no idea. We have a void world. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, fine. I do believe that this is not necessarily a bug per se, but it is something that was, I don't know if it wasn't intended or not, but I have read about a few people having this problem. Yeah, I'm not getting anything. So this is a void world. You can actually build void worlds in RFTools intentionally. So that is a thing that you could do, but I don't think it's very common, so it really shouldn't have been my first one. I will probably have to fiddle with that a little bit. I might even need to go into my settings, but we'll see. It looks like it's eternally day, though. Because if you look at the sun's position compared to my crosshair there, it's not moving. It's not moving whatsoever. So I do believe that this is eternally day, which could be handy in a void world. I might even keep this dimension around, but we will see. I will go take a look at a couple of the settings and compare it to a couple of notes I found online and see if I need to change that setting. So I will return in a bit. Alright, so my plan was foiled. Not technically, I could turn it on. But from what I can tell, there's limited forum information on this, but ultimately it seems to be part of the pack's design that even these worlds are void. That does not mean that they cannot spawn some of the tendrils that I mentioned. In this case, there are tendrils up there, but I think they're just natural clouds. I'll go check in a sec. But I can still do some of the other features. I just need to either get lucky with the random dimension or I need to design them myself. So I got unlucky. From what I've seen of others, there's usually some sort of feature, spheres or something like that full of materials that I could at least work with, but I did not get that lucky. I just got blank void world. The amount of aura nodes seems to be comparable to my world, so I don't know if I will need these whatsoever, but I have been scanning them anyway just in case. But otherwise, yeah, I think I just did not get lucky. And I will need to figure out something else for my dimension building. So let me go up and check the tendrils. Nah, they look like clouds to me. They look like a mix of regular clouds and storm clouds. And typically if it's tendrils intentionally, they would be more towards ground level, so to speak, even though there's no ground. So I did not luck out and get ground to work with, as was my original excitement. Now, what this does mean is I have some more challenges ahead of me. Those challenges being some of the materials that I would have needed from one of these worlds isn't possible, or at least not possible through the normal means, and that is dimensional shards. So I'm going to leave here and take a look at NEI here. Dimensional shards are made from dimensional ore and nothing else that I can tell other than loot bags. And the shard ore does not have a crafting recipe, so I can't get that normally. So I have two options. And I don't really care for either of them, but if those are my two options, then I'm going to have to do it. Dimensional shard ore may come in the form of a dimlet, the dimensional shard ore dimlet. However, it is rarity 4, and it's got a pretty decent RF per tick cost. Or I can spawn some villagers and hope that I get one that is capable of trading dimensional shards. So I'm going to have to fiddle with that a little bit and see if I can get it going. To get lucky with the dimensional shard or dimlet, I need more dimlets. I only had 16 of them. Now I'm down to 7. So I could process the rest of these and see what I'm going to get, but I don't have anything yet. So what do I have? I have sky, I have liquid, biome, mountains? Interesting. So I'm going to process the rest of these dimlets and see what I get. Alright. So they're all done. I got lime stained glass, so I could make something out of that, I guess. Magma cube monsters, jungle, magenta stained glass. Ooh. And concentrated cloud seed, which is not too terribly great. So what we can do with these is we can edit our current dimension. So I can do tendrils, and I can do one of the stained glass. Don't really care for either of those, but, you know, whatever. Nah, I don't think I will do that yet. I just don't have the dimlets required to make anything worthwhile. So what I'm going to do instead is edit my world just slightly. Let's get some of those. And see how this goes. So what you can do is you can take your realized dimension here, and you can throw it in here with a digit. Sorry, it needs to be in an empty one. So what I can do instead, sorry, that's not right. I can do it on the dimension editor. There we go. So I can throw the dimension in here and throw a digit in, and it should be able to process that. However, it does not seem to be. Okay, let's see about... I'll tell you what, let's try another one. Because I believe... I am fairly certain that when you create another dimension, that it works off of the same seed as the previous one. So if I were to go in here like I did previously, and put this in here and hit store, it should be the exact same as this one. I don't recall why they chose that method, but they did. So what you can do is you can throw a dimlet, a digit in there, and that will adjust it slightly. I don't quite know how much it will adjust it, so let's find out. I don't know what I'm doing. So that one is built. Now this one has 15 RF per tick, which is different than the 45. So that tells me that this one is different, but 15 RF per tick also tells me that there's probably not much worthwhile in there because it's so cheap, which means it did not get randomized to include some of the more expensive stuff like this 35,000 RF per tick. So it's full enough that I can go test it out. Test 2. There we go. Let's find out. Oh, this one is more interesting. So this is spheres. Ooh, curiouser. Alright, so what we got here was more randomization. So all I did was put a 0 in there. And it did some form of calculation on that. And now I have stuff. So I have spheres of magenta stained glass, which, oddly enough, that was the randomization that was chosen for me. Because there's something for stuff to spawn on, these slime islands have spawned. This is part of Tinker's construct. And then I also apparently have giant spheres of redstone ore. Now one thing I'm curious about is if this contains anything. Because sometimes these spheres actually contain something like a liquid. Does not look like it. No, there is nothing in here except for a ton of redstone ore. So, if I need a ton of redstone, I know I can come in here and get as much as I would ever want. There's just redstone ore everywhere. Looks like, according to the minimap there, we have different colors of glass. Please tell me this is lime, because that would be amusing. Light gray. Okay. So I was hoping for the lime only because those are the only two material dimlets I acquired, was the magenta and the lime stained glass. But stained glass seems to be very common and popular. Seems kind of annoying, but that's okay. I see a cow has spawned somewhere up here. Where are you, cow? There you are, cow, and you've got a jester's hat. So this is the joys of the randomized dimensions. So what I will do here is I will set my normal home point and set it to red. That's kind of my standard finding method. Now, I do not know if I'm going to get anything special that I'm looking for in here. Is that a second sun? Or is that the moon? Interesting. But yes, these dimensions can be very interesting. We've got an orange sky, orangish yellow. We've got magenta-looking fog, I believe it is. I think that's the fog type there. We have a sun that does not appear to move ever. Nope, it is moving very slowly. And then we have sun number 2, I guess. Sure, why not? So these dimensions are very, very interesting, and they can get more interesting when you actually have land. But I'm not going to hold it against them. I understand the point of a skyblock is to have void everywhere. It's just a little disappointing. I'm going to travel a little bit in hopes of finding the other thing that I need in here. Although I suspect I'm not going to find it. So I will cut out something here once I figure out what's what. Aha! Aha! Because these spheres count as a land of sorts, they do allow the generation of these little buildings in RFTools. And these little buildings are a dimensional hut. I'm not sure if that's the official term for them, but that's the term I know. And inside of here, which I'm going to have to break in, as we've got this glass covering, inside contains more dimlets. So we've got a bunch of unknowns. I got a whole stack of 16 out of that, which is awesome. Plus we got biome for swampland. And then in here, we got saturation, black fog instead of the magenta that we've got. And then we've got liquid flux goo. Oh, that sounds wonderful. So this is how you can acquire more dimlets relatively easily. The other way is to set up an Enderman farm, but they have like a 1% chance to drop a single unknown dimlet. So it's pretty few and far between, even with a full farm going. So I was hoping for these little huts so that I could wander around myself and acquire them. Apparently I can't navigate doors with this speed. So now that I've got this one, and I know that they exist, I can spend a lot of my off time wandering around aimlessly trying to find more. They tend to spawn somewhat nearby each other. And not nearby each other, but you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of a dozen or so chunks away. So it's usually not too difficult to find a bunch of them. However, going back over my mini-map, I don't see any more that I could have found on the way. So that is going to be some of my off time, is finding more dimlets. So, I do believe that is all the time I've got for right now. I will be definitely doing more dimension building, and hopefully getting some more interesting worlds to show off that, that either I found randomly, or I was able to build and create myself. So, until then, I will see you next time.